This is Jacob from DragonBastard Games. Today we're going to be starting with the first campaign diary from my game. The adventure begins in the early afternoon on the 30th day of autumn. We begin in the small settler town of Clifftop. The mostly intact marble walls of the city span 20 feet high, surrounding the town on all sides, and smoothly extend up from the cliff face. A river runs through the town, but marble grates bar it as an entryway. At the exit of the river, it cascades some 100 feet before gathering in a pool below. Rising from that pool is a stone spire about 40 feet out that rises to the height of the wall on top of the cliff, and on which is built a tower some 3 stories taller. The copper dome of an observatory atop is blue-green with age. This town isn't old. Of children born here, none have yet reached adulthood. It's settled into the existing ruins in the jungle. There's a wooden gate built into the stone wall, patching a hole previously torn through. A slick-looking human approaches the gate coyly and exchanges brief words with the gatekeeper. He gets to the trading post and begins to speak with the postmaster there, but she's summoned away at the sound of a whistle. She insists that he come with, rather than leaving him in her shop. They return to the gate, where a minotaur from the unearthed arcana about minotaurs of Kryn drags a boat on shore, pops a few corks out of it, then adds axles and wheels. He invented a rowboat that can be converted to a wagon. Even on land, though, he rows it with a pair of shovels. There is some argument, but the human plays translator. Before they manage to disperse, a tiefling appears, and the human plays translator again. But the postmaster can speak with him, and seems very interested. As the 3 are about to move on, a 4th person arrives. The guards are a little wary of this. They rarely have visitors, never mind so many. The postmaster steps forward to interrogate this one directly. His head is mostly bald, but the back half is a ponytail consisting of thick dreadlocks. He looks a bit like a tall, strong goblin, but the postmaster sees the way he holds his jaw and recognizes him as an orc child. Oddly, though, his face is bloodied, and he carries a black leopard over his shoulder. She, in Hob Command, asks why he is here. Hob Command is a brutal language, very, very clear, but only able to give commands. "Tell why you're here." She is leery, as orcs are rarely, if ever, seen. Orcs are almost exclusively slaves of the hobgoblin tribes. Hobgoblin scouts have been seen about lately and seem to have a particular thirst for goblins. "They will trade." He shrugs the leopard on his back. There's a little more exchange before it becomes apparent he speaks Grower, the language of the agricultural dwarves in the world as well, which helps to calm things down a little bit. They are all led in and brought to the trading post. Postmaster Jillian mentions some local goings-on, a set of missing goblin twins, hobgoblin raids, a corruption within the tower, the town's matron, Singer Smoothsail's failing health. But the group doesn't seem to acknowledge these. The orc, called Kinruglob, purchases some gear, then takes a short rest. The minotaur, Carthal the Magnanimous, appreciates the might of the orc child, impressed by his kill, and so camps with him for a bit, taking a rest himself. The tiefling, Seeker, buys some things before wandering away, and spends some time people-watching, learning the town as best he can. The human stays behind with Postmaster Jillian. An hour passes, and Carthal and Kinrglog pack up to head out, but are interrupted on the way by a commotion. It turns out the human, Dustin Ash, requested a room, but panicked when he found it locked. He began to break through the wall with a crowbar. After the surprising violence, he is seen being escorted out by Postmaster Jillian. Carthal arrives and attempts to play diplomat, though lacking language. Only Dustin speaks his language. He has a vested interest in keeping him around. He attempts to intervene, but Dustin insists on aggression. Postmaster Jillian looses a warning arrow, striking his belt, dropping his pants. When he continues to try to attack her, she shoots him. He slumps over and she binds him. Carthal is alarmed, but she shows good faith and treats the wound. Once he's bound, she revives him and asks Seeker to bring a note to the matron of the town. Another whistle sounds, and she bolts away. Interested, Kinraglog follows, but sees her disappear out the gate. In the distance, he hears the Hob command shouts, "Idiot! Scatter! Hide!" He flees deeper into the town. Kinraglog is an escaped orc slave. He has a habit of running from danger. At a young age, a hobgoblin girl favored him, disguised him as a hob, and snuck him into the war school called Barkfloor. That way he could stay with her. She got the wind that he'd been found out, though, and so she told him to flee. He did. He still fears hobs are hunting him. The matron, an elderly goblin woman, is carried on palanquin to the bound Dustin when Kinraglog is coming by. She emits a trilling whoop, which echoes from one person to the next, covering the town. The whole town gathers to its center, where Dustin is bound to a post. A trial is had, but rather than attempt to argue his side, he spews curses and screams. They find that Dustin is guilty of unruly conduct, and none are willing to let him work the dead off personally, and the crowd begins to sway toward blood frenzy. Singer Smoothsail, the goblin matron, dissuades them, and instead suggests he do them a public service and cleanse the tower of the scourge. They push Dustin up the wall and force him to cross a makeshift bridge, a couple of loose boards, to the tower across the way. Seeing the excitement of the people, Carthal elects to join, to much cheering. Kinraglog asks around for translation and learns that they are going to clear out the tower of some strange undead creatures. Not wanting to see the other two come to harm, and curious, Kinraglog joins. Seeker stays on the outside and waits for Postmaster Jillian's return. Inside the tower, the group defeats a zombie dressed in monk's clothing who attacks them with a broom. Kinraglog attempts to grow a flower in his corpse, using druidcraft, but it won't take. He seems to be steeped in formaldehyde. That's about the end of Session 0. That was only about an hour of play. We mostly did character creation prior. The following week, it turns out the player of Dust and Ash didn't show up. The subsequent week, he confirmed he would have to bow out, but I didn't know that at the start of the next session, so I did what I could to keep him nearby. The player of Seeker was also absent that week, but had planned on it, which is part of why he didn't join the party at the tower. He has a small side adventure in the next half as a result. They peek downstairs, but find it full of 5 zombies sleeping in beds. Confused and concerned, Dustin sneaks upstairs. There, 3 similarly dressed zombies intercept them, and strip the knives from Dustin. Seeing this, Kinraglog and Carthal freely give up their weapons. They try to speak with the party, but when efforts fail, they escort them out of the building. Once out, they return with their weapons. Baffled, but curious, Kinraglog climbs the tower. Eventually, Carthal follows, and later still, Dustin manages to climb up as well. Kinraglog is rapidly assaulted by a zombie monk who clearly possesses some of the skills of life. He leaps up to the window where Kinraglog attempted to enter and drags him into the room by the head. Carthal enters and sinks his axe into the monk's face, but it slides off his skull, peeling his face back. I've gotta say, I love the way zombies work in 5th edition. If you damage them enough to kill them, they get to make a con save related to how much damage they took, and if they succeed, they remain at 1 HP. Super cool, and it results in weird zombie stuff like this. Terrified, Kinraglog backs up to the opposite window and begins to hurl sling bullets into him. He won't go down. Panicking, Carthal attempts to throw him out the window, but at that moment, Dustin had just managed to get into the window and is launched out, down into the water below by the zombie monk. The zombie monk just barely manages to hold on to the window frame and leaps back into the fight, landing a kick on the Minotaur's snout. Carthal is pissed and groans loudly. At this time, the monks from downstairs filter in and echo, "Hamagen?" one after another. Clear that the fight is going on too long, Carthal and Kinraglog flee. They find themselves stuck on the stone spire, however, and after a while decide to knock on the door. The monks had previously seemed reasonably hospitable, only panicking when they forcefully entered the tower. After a moment, the monks open the door, and one by one, they gawk, confused by the lack of bridge, then return with the next monk. This continues until each monk has seen the issue, including the lead monk, the one with a peel of his face hanging down. They help them cast the line across the way and anchor it by hand. Kinraglog and Carthal cross the line and head down to the waterfall pool to collect Dustin. By the time they get down, he leaps out from behind the waterfall, screaming. Dustin swims to shore, panicked. He explains there was a creepy doll within. The group, largely defeated, decides to take another short rest to regain their bearings. In this time, the sun goes down. They head back toward the town, but before they get there, the creepy doll approaches from behind them. Dustin runs away from it, but it reaches out. It asks, "Play?" in a strange language. Kinraglog mimes the question back, which it takes as consent, and takes his hand. Immediately, Kinraglog passes out, but startles back awake. He is full of pain. Shocked, Kinraglog draws a dagger. Carthal appears to reach for the doll, but in actuality is possessed by the young ghost that carries the doll. Kinraglog attempts to decapitate the doll with a knife, but Carthal retaliates, knocking Kinraglog out. Carthal lifts Kinraglog and carries him back to the cave. Dustin follows, but watches from afar, waiting for his moment. Carthal acts strangely, though, playing with rocks and the doll all night long. As the sun begins to rise, the skeletons of dozens of little children brighten on the rocks in the cave behind the waterfall. All night, while playing in body, in mind Carthal debated with the child holding him hostage. He heard her complaints. She missed her family. She hates being lonely, and she's afraid to go to sleep. She remembers a bright light and then nothing after it. She has been unable to leave the cave for any length of time, and so doesn't really know how long she's been here, but she feels like it's been forever. When friends come by, they don't last long. Eventually, Carthal convinces her to give him his body back, on the condition that he'd carry her with him and help her find her daddy, Jen. About this time, Kinraglog wakes. He looks warily out, unsure of what to do. Carthal soothes him wordlessly. They leave. In town, meanwhile, a second trilling whoop calls out, and although it echoes through the town, soon it fades to a mournful wail. Seeker follows the sound and sees the crowd gathered around Singer Smoothsail's home. There she is being pulled out of the house, still on palanquin. A wound oozes blood from her collar. She is passed out sideways on the palanquin. Guards on the wall seem split in action between mourning and investigating. The Goblin Guard Captain, Lieutenant Duval, reveals signs of ladders and hypothesizes that Hobbs broke into the adjacent wall enclosure. There is one wall around the town, and adjoined to it is another, which has gone uninhabited as best anyone knows. It seems like there was once some sort of castle within. Lieutenant Duval gives a rousing speech, inspiring the grievers, and a portion break off, searching the annex to the outer wall, but turning up very little. Seeker watches this all, but as opportunity presents itself, breaks away from the group to avoid the risk of seeming involved. As they retreat, they notice the tracks of the amphibious canoe and follow them. They find the canoe abandoned and tracks leading to the waterfall. At this point, it's late, so Seeker goes a-hunting. In a clearing, they find a serious stack of bananas. Not just a bunch, but one of those barrel-sized columns of bananas. They approach it to collect a banana and are attacked by a pair of shrieking baboons. Seeker rends the face from the skull of one with an eldritch blast before the other skitters away. Seeker collects the bananas, eats, and sets up a hammock nearby and rests. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, elect to receive notifications. I try to post a video every Thursday, so there should be more soon. I've also got a Patreon set up if anyone's interested in supporting me. Right now, my plan is to post more videos and possibly release some of my game notes, maps, etc. I've got some big plans for the future, but they still seem a little distant to go into too much detail. Until next Thursday, bye-bye.